Hey, welcome back, sports fans. We have a huge recap as the NFL playoffs have commenced this past weekend. It was a great weekend of football. I almost picked all the games, but I lost out on my last one. But we're going to recap what happened last weekend, obviously dive into what's about to happen this weekend, and then RPF is going to take us through a little catch-up on some tennis. Tennis is back. The Australian Open is alive and well, and he's going to get us caught up on that. But let's start, RPF, with last week's football games, which the vast majority of, not all of them, the vast majority of them were fantastic, close, exciting, all the things. Let me ask you this. Last weekend, let's start with, what was your biggest surprise coming out of last weekend in the NFL?
For me, it's like I wanted to be a Chicago Bear fan, so I think they were the winners, really, because they got the top draft pick, and they don't have to have the pain and suffering of the entire every fan base across the country that were in the playoffs. My biggest surprise, I think, obviously was it not almost a surprise, but it was a surprise, particularly after that first half, that Brett Girl, Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback we've been teasing the entire season, has stepped up and is saying, "Don't sleep on me." You know, I'm not quite out of this picture of discussion of the top quarterbacks that are young here. I think that comeback was as expected, or it was as surprising as it was kind of not unexpected. So I think obviously they're going up to Kansas City, so that's a whole different mountain to climb. But right. Who would have thought halfway through the season that they would be in the divisional round? So not
a chance. If you go back to mentality halfway through the season, not a shot.
They were like 3-8 or something. Yeah, they were like,
yeah. So, it was like, yes, massive hats off to them. I think
that hair, by the way, I'm sorry, but it's on point still. I mean, he whipped off his helmet at the end of the game. I'm thinking, okay, let me see. It's in the humidity. It's in Jacksonville. His hair is literally, I'm sorry, it's like perfect.
It's on point. It's on point. I'm sure he's standing by his claim that I don't do anything for it.
Oh my God, that's so crazy. That to me is the biggest lie in a world that exists with George Santos. That's the biggest lie. The Brett Girl doesn't do anything to that hair.
Right. Well, if they get to the Super Bowl, we always need a scandal for the 2 weeks in between the Super Bowl to run.
That's our manufacturer scandal.
That's our manufacturer scandal.
In fact, sports, of course,
Trevor
will get
Lawrence
to the bottom
actually
of it.
takes care of his hair.
Sports, of course, is going to get to the bottom of this. We have an on-field correspondent, a beauty and hair expert that we can put on the case. Okay, investigative reporting on the hair products found in the locker room.
That's right. I agree with you. I think that was my biggest. Again, it wasn't a surprise that they won to me because I actually had them picked to win. But their comeback was a surprise. At halftime I was like, oh geez, I guess I blew my parlay. So I think that the way that they won was the biggest surprise to me, that for sure. The game before that, anything out of the 49ers Seahawks that either shocked you, surprised you, or
it doesn't surprise me. It keeps surprising me that Brock Purdy is. I mean, even when quarterbacks have to go through ebbs and flows and ups and downs and everything else, and he's on that trajectory. I mean, it's hard to forget. It's hard for me to remember that he's the same round, same age, same everything as the quarterback for the Dolphins that was like looking like a kid in Oz.
There was a big difference.
Yeah, so it's just the maturity level, the decision making, the checkdowns. Of course, the talent also. He has McCaffrey, he has all these other, but still, you have to get them the ball, right? And I think he's managing the game so well, and that's only going to get better, right? So I'm deeply impressed with Brock Purdy.
Yeah. I agree. Nothing. Again, I had the 49ers. I think most of America had the 49ers picked to win that game.
Yeah.
I can't say surprised or shocked, but just to reiterate what you were getting at there is just the leadership that Brock Purdy appears to be showing, which leads me to the question of, if you remember going into this season, the 49ers were all in on Trey Lance.
That's my point. This is the third quarterback who's led the team this year. Yeah.
And so, what's going to happen? Like, what's going to happen with them going into next year? I mean, does Trey Lance get to pick up right where he left off, or
no? He's going to go to hello Tampa Bay.
So that'll be an interesting storyline to watch. Then we got into the Sunday games. Hey, listen, I'll let you dive into your Dolphins. I'll give you that grace. But for me, there was just nothing special. Nobody thought they were going to win. They didn't win. So that's that.
Also, let's put it in a little bit of context here. I mean, it was the biggest spread in the history of the wild card round in football when betting has been even in play, and it was not even. It was we covered the spread by 12 points. So I mean, in that sense, we were leading. 5 minutes into the second half with that tremendous strip of the quarterback and football run, in the touchdown. But once again, we were, in my view, I mean, there's a million things to dissect. If this was a Dolphins podcast, we can get into all that, but we're not going to do that. Basically, it wasn't a surprise to the country. It was once again that type of like, which you've experienced this whole year with your Patriots, that it's like, wow, are they doing this really? Are they really in it? And all of a sudden, we have a third string rookie quarterback, which I say it that way. Just direct contrast to Brock Purdy, who's also basically with a third string rookie quarterback who's led the team for weeks now. So for us, this was we were down by 3 points after all the machinations and bad play calling and everything else that we happened, but we're still down by 3 points with 4 minutes plus left, and we had 3 delay of game penalties, one coming after a timeout. So I can't even process especially the one that the backbreaker was fourth and 2 inches became 4th and 5 plus yards because of a delay of game.
Yeah.
Again, a third one. So, I'm going to sit there and be shocked that we didn't win. No, but it was just boneheaded stuff that we had to clean up. So the good news for the Dolphins, for me as a fan, we got rid of Boyer, who was the only holdout left from the last administration. He was a defensive coordinator, and he's gone. And all his team all his whole support staff is gone. So the defense has to be, anyway. So the Dolphins lost, no shock. But ultimately, how we lost was interesting because it wasn't this, 42-10 blowout that people were expecting. It was actually a game that Buffalo was like, their fan base was on pins and needles. And I was on Twitter during the game the whole time, and the Buffalo fan, they were just like, everything was just they're throwing pasta at the wall, every excuse, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we squished the fish. I told you we would. Meanwhile, it's like, they won by 3 points. So congrats, Buffalo.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. There's a couple
by the way,
of highlights.
One last thing. We had the most uncharacteristic thing happen to us, which has not happened at all. It's an epidemic throughout the NFL, but we haven't had this issue until now. Literally 3 potential TDs dropped in the hands of Waddle and.
You guys had a lot of drop passes. You guys had a lot of dropped passes, yes.
It was like, but Waddle doesn't drop passes.
Well,
and
first of all,
Tyreek doesn't drop passes.
First of all, I haven't followed along, but Waddle looked like, was he dead? Like he got hurt. Like he was like one of his first drops, I think it was, or maybe a contested
second
pass.
Play of the game or something. Yeah.
He came down and he immediately grabbed his arm, and he looked hurt, and he came back in because obviously he's a gamer.
He's fine. I just
saw it. Every time the ball went his way, he got touched, and it was just he was like peeling himself off the ground, just like
it was weird. He was talking about how the Tua's lefty and the trajectory is different.
Yeah, blah blah blah.
Exactly. If the ball is in your hands, you have to catch it in the playoffs. That's just crazy. Of course, our fan base turned on Waddle now. We have to trade him. So.
Anyway, I'm giving you the they put up 31 points. Like that's
it's hard to complain, but when you see how much money's left at the table, still that would have been
Yeah,
I would personally I would love to see one more round. But of course,
Unfortunately, what I'm sure you don't want to hear is that for me, this was more a game of like I watched this game and I was like, oh my god, like Josh Allen looks awful. Like,
he doesn't play well against Miami generally speaking. Except this past year, anyway, for sure, he's been
like
spotty.
I said, like I thought the Bills were going to win. They won. What I came away from the game with more of is questions of the Bills. I was like, oh my gosh, like they weren't. They just didn't look.
Would it shock you if it's Bengals Chiefs? No, it wouldn't shock me.
And then so this was probably the country's next big upset. I had them picked.
You did,
but the Giants over the Vikings. What do you got coming out of that game?
I said, well, it's exactly what you said. When I was watching, I was saying Jonah's happy, and I told you I'd be happy if they won. I just didn't think they would, and so I was very happy. I was like, oh my god, this is I don't know. I think this is what they need to kind of just then go into next year and say, okay, this is real. Let's really tighten up here. So I think the Giants have gone as far as they're going, but I will say they're playing. I think they're fortunate to play the best team in football because they know them best. And the Eagles,
It's true.
and every time you play a team a third time, it's not going to be a cakewalk. It's going to be a smash mouth type of game. I think it's going to be a little chippy out there. And I think the Giants, who knows? It could be a block punt or something could change the whole game. So I don't know. I
agree with you. And I think we're going to get into this when we do our look ahead, but that Eagles Giants game is one of the games coming up this weekend that I'm like, I don't know. So
and of course, and the other game in the NFC is going to be great too. The Niners and Cowboys. I mean,
yes, NFC has some tremendous. I mean, it's the playoffs.
Jags and Chiefs have a different appeal.
Right, that one might get a little messy. The last game on Sunday was the Ravens-Bengals. Bengals beat the Ravens. Kind of like your Dolphins-Bills game. I came away with this. I was like, ooh, the Bengals didn't look all that great.
Right.
You got the Ravens without a Lamar Jackson.
Right.
And I thought they would look better. I'm not going to read a whole lot into it. I just thought they would. I thought they would look better.
I think so too.
I think I'll just kind of leave it at that. There's nothing.
Both Bengals and Bills are looking like damaged goods until they play each other, and then everything's right. And then Allen has 500 yards, and
right.
And
I do think
Lamar Chase has a 290-yard catches, and
right. I do think it's kind of fun and interesting that so now in the playoffs we get the game that we missed, right? The canceled game, the Bills Bengals. We now get it in the playoffs.
That's going to be emotional.
It's gonna be pretty wild. And then the last game Monday night was the Cowboys Bucs. This is what ruined my parlay. I picked all the games. I was leading into Monday night, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
I called Monday night melatonin. It put me to sleep. This was like
I went to bed. I went to bed.
You text me saying, "Okay, I'm done."
Yeah, I went to bed.
By the way, that last pick from Brady, it was just like it just has to be his last play ever as a quarterback because it's just
So I mean, I guess listen, we've kind of been talking about the questions that come out of these games, right? And my question out of this game was is it time? Is it time? Is it time?
It's time.
I love Tom Brady. I love watching him. Used to love.
I'll put it to you a different way. I'd rather have Kurt Warner, 10 years removed from the NFL, come back than Tom Brady next year. I think Kurt Warner is in better position to impact the team positively than Tom Brady. I'll say put it to you a different way that's more clear. Russell Wilson should start over Tom Brady.
Wow, man.
And I'm sorry, Tom Brady is and has been and will always be the GOAT.
Right.
But the GOATs have to go to pasture at some point. And this is where we are.
Yeah. Listen, it's a tough question to answer. And obviously there's only one person that can answer. And here's why. And so not to equate my putrid baseball career to Tom Brady's NFL career.
But you have to go through that. Yeah.
But when it's over, when it's done. So let me put it this way. When baseball was done for me, I was only 31 years old. I could still throw just as hard as I ever could. If anything, I could throw just as hard, but with more command and a better head upstairs, to manage the game with. But I just, you get to this point where if you're not an established person, you get bypassed and the next crop comes up. Anyway, this all to say that, so I was sitting at home and I couldn't watch baseball on TV because as I watched, I could sit there and say, I can do exactly what that person's doing. And that's a feeling that's within you, right? So here's the thing. We all watch these games, and I think most of us are like, Tom, just it might be time, man. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling it, I will say it is not time if he can next year thinks that he can sit and watch a football game and go, I can do exactly what that person's doing.
It's funny, in a different way, obviously in a different world away. I mean, a different type of universe. What I do, I believe that I am one of the top editors in magazines in the country, right? I believe this to the core. I know I can do this. In fact, a little plug, our magazine, The Mountains, just won the magazine launch of the year just 2 weeks ago. So we were very happy with that. My point is that if someone if someone tells me constantly, everyone who talks to me says, it might be time to let someone else come in and do that. I'm like, what the F are you talking about? I'm at the height of my faculties. I'm at the height of my experience. Like you're saying, I have more knowledge than ever. I have more passion and understanding how things get done better. If anything, you should be like, I should be having a million options to go wherever I want to go, because I'm the Tom Brady of magazines. He's the Tom Brady of Tom Brady. He's the NFL's Tom Brady. So I don't. And by the way, it's not surprising that he retired, unretired, and I'm not saying. I'm saying just as advice that he may or may not take from anybody is to take it's the hardest thing to do is to take a harsh look. And by the way, it's not like he's going away. He has a $500 billion contract at Fox to be the lead commentator.
Well, yeah, and so that's actually precisely what got me into this whole thinking is, because I said, my immediate emotional reaction was, Tom, it's time. Like I can't watch this anymore. I don't want to watch you perform like this anymore. It's like, it hurts. And then I was like, okay, so then what does he do? And I was like, oh, he's got his commentating gig all lined up. And that's when I said, there is no way, if he thinks he can still compete, there is no way he's going to go sit in a booth and watch football games that he thinks he could be on the field winning.
Sure.
And that's where, this whole, I started kind of giving this a lot of deeper thought, and kind of sort of brought back my own memories again, like I mentioned, of trying to watch baseball on TV, and I can remember watching games against guys I played. I remember watching games against guys that I played, and I was like, that motherfucker's still playing. I was like that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. Here's the problem, though, is that I think it's pretty evident that he's not going to stay in Tampa. At least it seems that way. And it's
he's competitive. He's going to go after the Tony Romo.
But crown. there's no. I'm saying if he stays in football, if he keeps playing, like there's no real sexy option for him.
I can't even think about it because I keep hearing this like Miami option, and it's literally, it's deafening to the point where I'm just
there's no real great places for him to land. It's got to be teams that take him have to understand that this is you're selling out, right? Your teams that take him are like saying, all right, we got 1 to 2 years,
one year, yeah.
Let's try this. And I'm like, you hear all these different rumors. Like I even heard the Patriots, and I was like, stop. I was like, stop. I was like, this is no.
Oh,
like,
no.
It'd be awful.
Oh, no.
And that would be listen to me right now, Tom. Let me be your agent right now. If you are even contemplating coming back to the Patriots as a massive Patriots fan and a big Tom Brady fan, no.
I will tell you, if he does that, he would have to convince Gronk and Edelman to join him as a one last tour.
Yeah. It is a death sentence. If he came back to the Patriots,
he would talk about tarnishing just a legacy.
All we're going to expect is 6 more Super Bowls, right? Like he's going to come back and be like, "Oh, Tom's back."
It's almost like it's taking me like almost 2 decades to get over the Michael Jordan last 2 years of his career phase. He plays baseball, he plays for the basket, he plays basketball. It's just no. If Tom has to play football, he can go to like Ottawa or something to Canadian football. He can go to like Saskatchewan or something. I don't know.
But yeah. Anyway.
But don't you think he's competitive? Is that he's going to be, when Tony Romo is perceived to be the most informed and entertaining and on point color analyst in football, right? He gets paid. It gets paid to in that league. All of a sudden, Brady comes in with his high pitched voice, and he's going to say, "Oh, he's going to have to prove, in a sense, his football knowledge, right?" Which obviously he's going to have a lot. But it's going to be interesting to see how, to me anyway, as someone who's a consumer of sports, and how he's going to be, and who he's going to be paired with, really, to kind of see who, if they take, because if he's going to be sleepy, like a Troy Aikman, like a sleepy commentator, he's like, you have to kind of pull things out of him. What?
I think he's going to be sleepy. I think he's
me too. I'd rather have a Tony Romo. I'd rather have a Peyton Manning or Tony Romo all day.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Before you have like Troy Aikman or like Tom Brady who are like kind of putting their finger in the wind to make sure they're not unpopular with whatever they're saying. And Tony Romo's like, that's a terrible play. That's what I love. I love honesty and anyway.
Yeah.
So I just think that they're overpaying for his services just to say they have him.
Just a scotch. Just a scotch.
Just a scotch. Scotch.
All right.
Wait, is that a white person word?
Yeah, probably. I learned it from my mom, so yeah, maybe. All right, so let's so there's our recap. Again, nothing massively surprising to me other than the way the Jaguars came back. And it's hard to say that the Bucs was a surprise to me. You know what? Honestly, I picked them to win. It was half and half of a.
That was the only game that in your pick six thing that I figured I thought, I'm scared for you.
Well, it was admittedly, it was kind of half and half, like analytical / emotional pick. Analytical in the fact that Tom was 7-0 against the Cowboys, and the Cowboys looked like trash the week before. That was the analytics side of it, and then emotionally, I wanted to see Tom go to San Francisco.
But also the patterns, though. The Cowboys have been up and down all season, right? And
I mean, holy smokes. I can't even imagine being a Cowboy fan.
It's an emotional ride this year.
All right, so looking ahead, that gives us, kicking off this coming weekend, that gives us Jaguars Chiefs out of the gate. I got to say, that's probably the biggest snooze fest we're going to have. Rest of the games look like dynamite. I put Jaguars Chiefs. I'm sorry.
I always cheer for the underdog, but the idea, the very notion that the Jaguars will defeat the Chiefs, it fills me with excitement and dread at the same time. I don't want to see the Jaguars in the championship game. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. I love cheering for the underdog.
Yeah.
But I'm like, wait, do I really want to see the Jaguars in the AFC championship game?
I mean, talk about full on, hair extensions. No, we definitely need to see the Chiefs in the championship game, in that environment, in that type of either story. Either team has a great story with them. With the Chiefs and Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, it would be epic. At least worthy of a championship game in the conference, right? Yep. So we're not going to be thinking, the Jags and Bills, great. It's going to be like, but then on the other side, it should be really, really fun. Although again, the same thing here. If the Giants defeat the Eagles, really? Are 9-7, 10-17, or 10-18?
So that's our Saturday night game, Giants Eagles. And like I alluded to earlier, this of the 4 games this weekend, this one gives me fits on. I keep going back and forth on who.
What I'm hearing is you're saying Jags, Giants, and Super Bowl.
Oh man, imagine that.
Can you imagine how the advertiser and the sponsors go? No, I'll only put my ad during the Rihanna halftime show.
Yeah.
By the way, we have to talk. We have to do a whole segment on the Rihanna halftime show. I'm very, very excited about it.
Yes, yeah, we will. We'll do a whole Super Bowl preview, obviously.
Super Boo is good too.
Super Boo.
That's only Brett girl gets there.
Yeah. So Giants Eagles. So this is like my Cowboys Bucs picks, sort of. Analytically, you got to say Eagles. But there's just something about the Giants. This is very reminiscent to me of the years that they won Super Bowls, where they just
that's exactly what I'm saying.
They got in just barely over 500, and
I think I'm gonna say 27-24 Eagles though. You can't imagine. I can't imagine a world that the Eagles don't pull this up.
Here's what we don't know. Here's what the Eagles are, and rightfully so, are keeping extremely tight-lipped is how limited or how hurt is Jaylen Hurts, right? He's got this shoulder problem, and they keep kind of saying, "Oh, it's no big deal. He's okay." I don't know if he is in any type of limited capacity. I think the Giants have a very, very realistic shot. Yeah. If he is full go and their offense is like it was weeks 10 through 14 or whatever it was, 10 through 13, 9 through 13. No shot. I mean, the Eagles were just they were unbelievable.
But again, in this year of topsy-turvy injuries / the streakiness of every team seemingly. Yeah. I mean, Dolphins, Jaguars, everybody's like up and way down, way up, way down. So I think it's gonna be close either way. I think even if Jaylen is fully activated. He hasn't really been performing. He's been out. So I think I don't know. I just have a hunch it's going to be close, and I have a hunch the Eagles will pull it out just because it's a home field. It's not gonna. They're just gonna. I mean, I don't know. I think they'll find a way. It'll be ugly probably, but I think they'll find a way, and they'll be hosting the Niners.
Whoa, okay.
Which, by the way, goes against my preseason.
I know it does. I'm trying to contain myself. All right. Well, then. Hang on. Let's hold off for a second. Going into Sunday. Here's another really hard one to pick, in my opinion. There's a lot going on to unpack in this game. Bengals Bills. This is a rematch, but not really a rematch because there was no match the first time. Yeah. This is a redo of the game that got canceled, which obviously due to the whole Damar Hamlin incident. Granted, it was the first quarter. We weren't even through the first quarter yet, but when that game, the way it started, my initial reactions to the game before the incident was the Bengals have them on the ropes. I mean, they came out flying and looked great doing it. This is a very hard one for me to pick. I alluded to the Bills when we talked about the Bills-Dolphins games. I alluded to the Bills, me leaving that game with more questions about the Bills. Man.
Well, think about this. Hamlin's going to come out 10 minutes before the game, midfield. The stadium goes crazy. The Bills are going to,
and then they're going to return the kickoff because that's what they do.
No, and then the Bengals themselves will be. Remember, they've been tremendously supportive. Yes. The Bengals as a team and individually. Some Bengals players even stayed at the hospital overnight. That type of thing. Yeah. So it's a very emotional thing for everybody. So it's going to be. I think it's going to be this is a weird thing to say. I think it's going to be a flat, emotional game. It's going to come out. The teams are going to come out flat and a little tentative. Not to make mistakes, which is the worst type of playing because then you become like, a Division II college team. So I think what we're going to see is the third quarter, they're going to open their shoulders up and let the balls fly. And that's when I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a 10-7 halftime. It's going to end up in the high 20s in the game. It's going to be, I think the Bengals pull it up.
You got the Bengals? I got the Bills. I'm going to stick with the Bills. I picked them originally.
The Bills should win. The Bills were a better team this year. But I don't know. Something about the Bengals this year. And the fact is that he's upright more than he has been. Yeah. Jamar is back fully. I mean, it's hard to pick against them for me. I mean,
it is.
I wouldn't want to play the Bengals.
No, and I'm sure the Bills don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, couldn't we have
it would have been the Dolphins. Yeah, it would have still, if the Dolphins beat the Bills, it would still have been Dolphins at Kansas City. And who would play? Oh, and the
Jaguars.
My God. And the Bengals would have played the Jags. Oh my God. They would have been so happy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
There you go.
Right.
The Bengals hate your Dolphins too. So
no, they do. They do. Everyone does.
All right. So I'm going Bills just because I do have questions out of the Dolphins game, but I picked them previously, and it's still too close. So I'm gonna stick with my initial pick. I'm gonna go
Bills. Chiefs. Saying Bills at Chiefs, and you're saying Niners.
So the next one, Cowboys Niners. We haven't gotten into. I got the Niners pulling this one out. At this point, in San Francisco, I think, the Niners just looked really good. And I can't. Here's the thing: is I can't. Sorry, I can't give. I can't give the Cowboys all of the credit for that. Whatever, 31-14 win or whatever it was. The Bucs. Like I said, part of my pick on the Bucs was half emotional, and I that's the part that really bit me. It's so for me, it's kind of like the Cowboys are like, yeah, you beat the Bucs, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's like beating.
They looked great.
It's like beating the Texans at this point,
which
I don't think the Cowboys did. But
right. But meaning, if you look at Dak's stat line, it was unbelievable. Like I was like, holy shit! Like what a game. But then
the
it's
Bucs
like
have to address that whole side.
Well, look who you played. Like
exactly.
So it's hard for me to sit there and go, oh my gosh, they're really rolling going into San Francisco.
I'm pretty similar though, but I will say this. I mean, again, like a little bit like the last week when I had the Giants hoping to beat the Vikings, but I had the Vikings in my head. I think here's the thing: the Cowboys and Niners, my whole career, my whole fandom, my whole time I've been a fan of football. Those two teams have always been my favorite NFC teams. Even though everyone likes to hate the Cowboys, and I just never did.
Yeah.
And then and I have reason to, because they actually beat the Dolphins when I was like, I don't know, 5 years old or something in the Super Bowl. But Cowboys and Niners, and I lived in San Francisco twice. My partner's from the Bay Area. So my mother-in-law is always calling me during the game. She's like just season tickets for her whole life. So she's like right there, she's always very into it. So I love the Niners in that sense, and I went to a lot of the games, and I've always loved Steve Young and that whole era. And so for me, it's I'm torn because the Cowboys were my preseason pick for the Super Bowl, and in a weird way, they're like spotty. They're like this rickety, like old roller coaster that's still hanging on to the track, but they're still getting there, right? And you're still nervous because you're hanging on for dear life. They're just going to fly off the track. It's like, but they're still hanging on, right? And it's like,
they are.
Dak Prescott's like, just trust me, just hang on to the rail, Meanwhile, you're like, you're going to kill us, Anyway, I mean, look, my head is telling me the Niners. I just think my gut is telling me the Cowboys still, and it's just so weird because when we keep saying, when's the shoe going to drop? With Brock kind of reveal himself to be a rookie, quarterback. And and you know what? All these vet quarterbacks have had more rookie type. Josh Allen type, against the Dolphins was more of a rookie than Brock was, right? So I just think that it's a hard one. I'm gonna stick to the 49ers playing, barely beating the Cowboys and going into Philly as 2-point favorites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I got too. But here's what bums me out about these picks is that it makes the AFC Championship games, both of them, just 1 versus 2 seeds, and I'm like,
yeah. And this was a year of parity and equality, and everyone could beat anybody. And and what happened was when we got to the playoffs,
this is what really muffs me. Like I don't want that, so I'm like,
muffs you?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Is that a muffs you? I mean, you said a couple of miffs, yeah. No, you said muff. That's interesting. Oh, math? Murph. Is this like? Wait? Did we devolve into like a language course? Is this like what's it called? That language online course you take?
Like Babel?
Babel. The word is myth. You said muff,
myth.
And then
I said like
muff. You said muff and then map.
I said like muiff, like MUIFF.
Okay, I'll give you a pass. Okay. I'm like, first of all, your mother's word I never heard of, and then all of a sudden, I was like, just like introducing new words into the lexicon. Okay, I get it. As an editor, I can appreciate words that don't mean what you want them to mean, but they sound like they should mean that. So that's okay.
Yeah. Well.
Okay.
Good. All right. So that's that.
Like. This is a fascinating side discussion on the essence of. By the way, I was funny. Because I was watching with the which play. I don't know which game it was, but it was like I said for fun. Close your eyes and listen to the announcers. What does that sound like? I told you this before. It's like, literally said like, and the tight end break through a tight hole. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And the person walked out of the room. Anyway, it's very funny. It's a fun game to try at home, kids. Close your eyes and listen to the announcers. Okay. All right. So I think so. Early pick, and we can change our minds next week. But early pick right now for the Super Bowl. Just a quick gut check.
Well, I mean, my picks are still in it. So Bills Eagles was who I had going into the playoffs.
Oh, into the playoffs. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick. My picks were. I had Chiefs. I had Miami Cowboys. I'm gonna say Niners and Chiefs, which will be a great game, by the way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean these will all be great games. You know what's really interesting to me is of the four teams left in the NFC, 3 of them are from the same division. That's pretty impressive.
I know
for 3 of them to get this far.
Yeah, exactly. And we thought, we remember halfway through the year, we were like AFC beast, NFC least. And meanwhile, now the NFC East has 3.
I mean, so listen, like if we want to get rid of this 1 versus 2 seed stuff going on, could you imagine like Cowboys, Giants, NFC final championship? That'd be
that would have been.
That'd be knockdown, dragging them out, man. That'd be
the Giants. You could bring back the catch.
We don't need to bring that back. We can leave that right where it is.
I just can't imagine. I didn't know you then. I can't imagine the despair you felt when that happened.
That catch was just like just shock. That was just like no.
But that was going to be your perfect season.
Yeah,
and it was ruined, right?
Yeah. That was
we were happy in Miami. I'll tell you.
That wasn't a catch. That wasn't a catch. And then you're like, why are they reviewing this? Why are they even reviewing this? They shouldn't be reviewing this. And then you watch the review and you're like,
a subtle comeback to that. I've been this season, particularly late in the season, I've been surprised how many clear catches I felt there were catches, and then all of a sudden in the replay, I'm like, wait, the ball did that? I didn't see that. It's like that's been a lot of reversing in my own head, that I was like, wow. So yeah. All right. So that's football.
That is football. So let's move on. Let's try a different sport for a mix up here. And RPF, take us into the Australian Open. I saw a couple headliners or some tickers. I saw a couple tickers this morning going across, and I started getting into it. And I was like, you know what? Well, I'm just going to save it for RPF to fill me in. So,
as everyone who's been a fan of or a follower or listener to sports, of course, with Jonah and RPF, the RPF says I am kind of not even low key. I'm full on obsessed with tennis and pro tennis, and I've been as a former junior player back in when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and as a really, and I was editor of a tennis magazine, so I've been very, very keen on following pro tennis my entire life. This year in particular, with 2023, was a very interesting. The season starts with the Australian Open, which is one of the 4 Grand Slams, the 4 biggest tournaments of the whole year, and it's summer in Australia, so it's like 100 degrees there. And
I saw that,
and tennis has a long season. It's almost 10 and a half months, almost 11 months. And some people play exhibitions during that 1 month off, but it's really a grueling sport. And people who follow tennis at all know a men's match in tennis in a Grand Slam, which is the best of 5 sets, minimally will go 4 hours long. I mean, it's like 4 hours of basically the most intense exercise, stop and go, anaerobic exercise in the world with 100-degree heat and the fans cheering for you or against you. So it's a very, very intense, and you have to do that for 7 rounds to win the crown. So only 3 players in history have won more than 20 Grand Slams, including, of course, Roger Federer and Djokovic and Rafa Nadal, who has 22, and Djokovic has 21. Huge rivals, and they've been separated so far from the rest of the tennis world. But now this year, it's supposed to be the introduction of there's a lot of the goats are older, the new players are newer. So this year, and the Americans, what's happened to the Americans has been a running theme for simply 2 decades. Since Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi were on the top of the tennis world, there hasn't been an American swarm of any kind. They've been here and there moments, but nothing. We had Andy Roddick for a minute, but he was. Anyway, so then what happened was this year, all of a sudden, you look up, and we're into the round of 16 right now, which is one round, the 4th round, one round before the quarterfinals and the semifinals and the final. So we're in the thick of it. We're in the height of the tournament. This tournament's been crazy. Rafa Nadal won last year in this impossible comeback, still arguably one of the best matches in the history of tennis, came back from 2 sets down and a breakdown to win in 5 sets. This year, he came to the tournament hurt, but recovering, and then he hurt his hip in the 2nd round. Finished the match, by the way, which was epically valiant. He lost to an American because he couldn't move. He literally, the last set, he couldn't physically move anywhere, and he lost. And then all of a sudden, number 2 seed Casper Ruud, who made 3 finals last year. He made the French U.S. Open finals, including he lost in the 2nd round. The whole men's tennis thing was turned on its head. All of a sudden, you look up and there's all these Americans still in it, and they're all in the top 100. There's I believe there's more than 24 Americans making up the top 100. That has not happened ever. Now all of a sudden, the American Armada is swarming in.
Okay,
so that's very interesting. On the women's side, interesting also. It's been Swiatek. I can't even say her name. Swiatek, whatever her name.
Yeah.
She won everything. She was unbeatable. So this past year, Pegula, this kind of like very steady, kind of Lindsay Davenport type steady player from America. She going up the ranks, and all of a sudden you look up, she's number 3 in the world without going far in any of the Grand Slams because she wins all these other tournaments. Mm-hmm. So she's number 3 in a team competition right before the Australian Open, which counts for the rankings. She not only beat Swiatek, she beat her 6-2, 6-2, which is, a blowout by anyone's standards. So that's very interesting. She's number 3 in the world. She's number 3 seed in Australia, and she has barely lost a game in her 3 rounds. Swiatek also has barely lost a game, but they're on a collision course. So then you have Coco Gauff, who's the young American who's only 18 still. She's been playing since I was
she's only 18?
She's only 18. I mean, I remember her 5 years ago. She's 18
Seriously?
years
Holy
old. Right?
smokes.
I mean, how long have you been following Coco Gauff, right? And she's 18, which is impossible.
Wow.
She's number 7 in the world, 2 top 10 Americans, and she's literally hasn't lost in the pre-tournaments before Australian Open to now. She hasn't not even lost a match, 20 straight matches. She's also not lost a set. So she's on point. And it's very interesting to me. So Coco Gauff and Pegula are both on the same side of the draw.
Okay.
Of course, because that's our life. And so is Swiatek. So all the other Ovas.
Oh, all 3 of them are on the same
all
side?
All 3 of them, right.
Wow,
right. So then all the other women who are Becky Ova and this is Ova and this is Ova and all the Ovas that you don't know what, they're all from the same hood.
Maybe a Kova? Maybe a Kova in there too.
A Kova? No, Kova actually lost.
Oh.
Could have all lost. Anyway, all the Ovas and all the other people that you never heard of are literally all on the other side. So this is going to be a packed side of the slam. And then you have so all of this is happening. So my other question is, and meanwhile, in all of this has been Djokovic. Djokovic, if you remember last year, was the biggest scandal last year when he went to Australia, not vaccinated. He literally thought he can get in. The tournament invited him. The country said no. So he was at this week-long, full-on crisis and demonstrations. And then he was deported. First of all, he was held in captivity, and then he was deported out of the country. So it became a huge scandal. And then he also couldn't play in the U.S. because of his anti-vax stance, and in some tournaments in Europe as well. So this year he comes in with the restrictions being lifted in Australia, but not in the U.S. So he still can't play Indian Wells and Miami, which are huge tournaments after this. But anyway, in Australia, he's in top form. He's won the end of the year. He won every tournament basically. He's won every match this year. So the question I have: can anyone stop Djokovic, particularly when Rafa is gone? And Ruud is gone. And last night, the one player that people thought could beat him with Medvedev, who was the finalist against Rafa last year, who has
this is one of the tickers I saw this morning.
Yeah. So what happened was that another American, Seb Korda, beat Medvedev. Wait for it, in straight sets. Boom, 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 gone.
Yeah.
These Americans are coming in strong. So here's the punchline. Oh, by the way, the other thing was Carlos Alcaraz, that other team phenom.
I was just about to ask you.
Yes, Carlos Alcaraz, the team phenom who ended the year number 1 for the first time ever in the history of tennis, the youngest player that age, only 18 or 19. He ended up being number 1 year end with Rafa being number 2. 2 people from Spain. But he got hurt right before the Australian Open, and he's not even there. So what happens now? So all of a sudden, of course, Djokovic, there's no Alcaraz. Alcaraz beat Djokovic. There's no Alcaraz. There's no Rafa. There's no Ruud. There's no one. So who's left? The usual suspect. Zverev, and Zverev, who got hurt in the French Open. It's his first tournament back. He lost in the second round. Then you have Tsitsipas, right? He's number 3 seed. Tsitsipas, he's always been the bridesmaid, never pulled through. What happens is now he's playing Yannick Sinner. Sinner he's ranked number 15. The most deceptive and terrifying 15 in the history of tennis. He literally had the match of the year, which saying a lot because Rafa and Medvedev last year in the final was amazing. But the match of the year, in my opinion, was a quarterfinal night match at the U.S. Open against Alcaraz. Sinner and
I remember
Alcaraz.
that, yeah.
You have to watch. If people don't understand why tennis is exciting, please watch. Go on YouTube. Alcaraz Sinner U.S. Open 2022 quarterfinal. Dropped the mic, unbelievable. Every point was unbelievable. People were out of their seats screaming. It ended at 3 a.m. or something. It was incredible, incredible atmosphere. Sinner is one of the most talented players I've ever seen, let alone in this year. He is on the verge of becoming Djokovic. So he's playing Tsitsipas now in the fourth round, in the round of 16. And Tsitsipas is a big favorite. I'm like, what? Bold prediction. Sinner beat Tsitsipas, and he's on the other side of the draw of Djokovic. Sinner's going to go to the finals and beat Djokovic in the final. That's what I say. Wow. So that's my whole Australian Open report. By the way, it bodes well for the whole year to kind of have this, again, weird kind of like tsunami of the youngsters versus the middle people, like Tsitsipas and Zverev, and Dominic Thiem and Wawrinka. All these people have gone by the wayside. The younger kids have come up faster. It's the same thing with the women. The younger American women are really to the point at the point of knocking at the door. So that's going to be but then we move into eventually next Slam, and we have the clay season, which is, as we all know, it's Rafa territory. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And Rafa, by the way, is hurt with this hip for 6 to 8 weeks. So we don't know if he's going to play until the clay season, which is not till April. So here we are.
Okay, there we
are. Tennis update.
That is the tennis update.
Any thoughts, Jonah, on tennis?
No, very exciting to hear about this wave of US players that are.
It is exciting. And by the way, quickly, there was a called the United Cup. It was a new type of team competition that started that count for the ranking for the ATP for the women, and WTA for the women. For the women's WTA, ATP for the men, and it's by country, and we were like the third seed, even though we had no right to be in the U.S. And we played Spain, and it was like Djokovic was playing, and Rafa was playing, and Swiatek was playing, and so all these other countries had these and Italy had Berrettini, and all these people. We won the whole cup, and we didn't even lose more than one, because it was a best of 5 matches, men and women and doubles and stuff. And we never lost more than one match, and we won the whole cup. So that was an early signal to this is 2023 could be the year that America took tennis by storm again. So it's very, very exciting to be an American tennis fan right now.
Very cool. All right. And so when does the Australian, sorry, I almost said French. When does the Australian Open start to wrap up? We're in the round of 16 now.
Right. So it's called, now they're in the second week, which is Sunday. So next Sunday / Monday would be.
So it'll be,
because they're in the future, as you know. But so next Sunday night essentially would be when it wraps up. But it should be an exciting next week. The final week of any Grand Slam is fun to watch. But this is going to be hopefully with some Americans impacting the results.
All right, there you have it, your tennis update from our man RPF. RPF, I think that puts a bow on our show for the day.
It does.
It does.
It does.
All right, huge games, huge NFL games coming up. Obviously, it's the playoffs. Every single game is huge. And then, as RPF alluded to us, tune into some Americans trying to whoop some butt over in Australia. Could be a
by the way,
good run.
Bonus coverage could be that we unleash our investigative reporter about the hair product for Brett Girl. I'm gonna unleash.
If they win, if the Jags pull off the upset over the Chiefs, we will figure out how to dive deep.
We have to wear Trevor Lawrence wigs.
Ooh, that'd be kind of fun.
Which I leave that to you, because I'm sure you'll find them for us. I don't know where to look. Has to be blonde, one length.
That'd be fantastic. All right, that's all the time we have for the show this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Podbean. And we can also be found socially over on Instagram and Twitter, and of course at our dedicated YouTube channel. Just go to any of those platforms and in the search bar type in Sports Of Course with Jonah and RPF. RPF, my friend, as always, a huge pleasure. And let's go watch some football and some tennis.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next week.
Have a great week, brother.